Hello everyone, bonjour tout le monde. So today I'm going to be doing my Peace Corps Part 2 video. So I'll be referring back to a few videos and pictures from the second part of my time in the Peace Corps, and then just kind of talking about them and giving you a full picture of how everything went down. So in my last video, in the videos of me speaking from my assigned community, I don't look nor do I feel my best. I am in those videos saying Peace Corps is great and all those other things. I was really into being a Peace Corps volunteer and what that meant. However, I was dealing with a lot of obstacles that I wasn't anticipating. Now, I got to my assigned community in, it might have been like October, mid-October 2022. So my days consisted of, if I remember correctly, I would wake up around, I don't know, maybe 7 a.m. and I think school started at 8 if I'm not mistaken. It was something like that. And my school was like basically across the street from where I lived, which is a cool situation to really not have to worry about a commute. So I'd, have my coffee. I really didn't eat much for breakfast there, but I'd have some fruit, coffee, maybe some chocolate, because I ended up resorting to eating chocolate for breakfast many times. And then I would just get dressed and go to the school. And they would have their morning, they would sing the anthem, raise the flag, things of that sort. And then it was basically set up where I would go and sit in the counselor's. She had a desk in one of the kindergarten classes. So in the corner of a kindergarten class, she had a desk. And she would sit on one side and I would sit on the other side. And sometimes we would talk about ideas, but a lot of times she would just walk away and I would just sit there staring at the kids for long periods of time. And sometimes kids would come up and talk to me, and that was cool, but that was kind of my day. And then usually by lunchtime, maybe sometimes even before lunchtime, so by 12, maybe 11 or 12, I would be dismissed for the day because I wasn't really doing anything, and everything I wanted to do was kind of shut down. I did end up doing maybe 2 presentations with the school counselor while I was there. We would jump from class to class, talk to the kids, and then maybe a few weeks into my time there, the principal had asked me if I would do tutoring with some kids from the 4th grade. Tutoring in reading and writing in Spanish. And I was not a literacy promoter, but I said yes, I needed something to do. And it became that I kind of stopped working with the counselor, and so I would just come and I would pull out 2, I think it was 2 kids at a time, every day or every other day, and work with them for like an hour maybe. And that actually ended up being a pretty rewarding process because I saw some progress in the kids. But during this time, because I was spending so little time at the school and my community had nothing to do, so when I came home from the school at 11 or 12, I would stay in my room for the rest of the day. And I would try to force myself to go for a walk once a day around. There was one main street, and you could walk down the main street that people lived on and then up a main road and then loop back to where I live. I could do that, so I would try to do it every day. And it was a very short walk, only maybe 5 to 10 minutes. For some reason, it was extremely difficult for me to get up and do that because I felt so dead in a way, like my soul had been taken from me. And I think part of that was that I was just in a place where I didn't relate to anyone, and I was eating the same meal basically every day. Every morning I would get up, I would have fruit, I would have coffee, very acidic on the stomach, so I had to have something fatty to cut it. If I'd been to the Capitol recently, I might have peanut butter in the fridge or something like that I could take a spoonful of. But a lot of times I would buy just bars of dark chocolate because that was pretty easy to get a hold of, and I would just have a piece of dark chocolate with it. So this was my breakfast, obviously not very healthy, so I wasn't feeling super good from that. And then lunch was almost always eggplant and rice, so it really ended up being every day just this extremely salty, greasy white rice with eggplant, banana, and usually some sort of bean. And I would eat that every day. There weren't many greens or really anything like that. Once or twice she might have gotten me broccoli, but I generally was eating that every day. And then what I had for lunch, so lunch is the big meal in the DR. What I had for lunch, I would just have leftovers up for dinner. So this was my very, very nutritionally deficient diet. So of course I didn't feel well. So I wasn't feeling well. I was having a hard time. It was just every day was like, oh my God, it's another day. I hardly working at the school, not really doing anything on the weekends, except for the weekends I went to Santo Domingo. Any opportunity I had to go to Santo Domingo, I would take. And so I'm going to show a clip of someone dancing. I had kind of shown it in my last video. So that clip marks a major turning point in my service. Essentially, the nearest volunteer to me, she was in a town maybe 20 minutes from mine, and she had said, let's go to Sabana de la Mar, kind of the nearest like big town, where there was like actually some stuff, and see the lead psychologist of the schools in the area, or it was, I forget what her exact title was, but basically she said, let's go there. I had been, this person, I had her number and we had texted once or twice, this lead psychologist of the schools in the region. And my project manager had said, oh, talk to her. She's, she's cool. But the one or two times I had texted her, she would like send me these like all these emojis and stuff. So I was like, who is this person? So when the volunteer in the town over asked me to go see her, I was like, because she was like, let's go see her and we can like make plans or whatever. And I was like, literally the last thing I want to do on my weekend is anything involving the school, because I feel so defeated and like I literally can't do anything, which is horrible that I had that mindset, because like I was so isolated and doing absolutely nothing that I should have been excited to try to do something, but whatever. I was just too defeated at the time. But I'm so glad I agreed to go. Because essentially what happened was, her and I think we took a guagua over there. When we arrived, we show up at this lead psychologist's house, and she's like so friendly and so nice, and I'm just sort of like, okay. And she's like, do you want to have lunch with us? Yada yada. And I remember I met her, she introduced us to her daughter. And her daughter looked like she might have been my age, maybe younger, maybe older, I don't know. But I remember we sat and talked to her daughter. Let's call her Dee. And I sat and talked to Dee for a long time. Me and the other volunteer, we just sat and we chatted, and I was like, holy crap, this girl is so cool. And I remember seeing how she was dressed, and she was wearing like booty shorts and a tank top. It's hot in the Dominican Republic. But in my community, I felt self-conscious even walking around my home with my host mom wearing booty shorts, because she covered everything, because they were also evangelical. And so I was like, are there people like this in the DR that, aren't so covered? And anyway, she was so cool and open and like everything I could want in a friend, And so I just remember having this thought, like, wow, it would be really cool to be around someone like this more often. And then we were talking, and I'm vegan, or basically vegan, and she told me that her fiance was vegan, and how they always had vegan food. They always had carne de soya, soy meat, because they knew how to prepare it, because he was vegan, and so yada yada. So her mom is like, let me make this great meal for you. And so it was like just a fantastic meal. It was like soy meat and all these vegetables and all this variety that I just was not getting where I was living. And it was just such a great lunch, and I felt like she just like accepted me into her home. And then what was kind of strange is I remember her being like, hey, let me take you into my little casita. And I just want to show it to you. This is my little home that I had built on my property recently, whatever. And I remember we walked into it, and it was just the cutest little house. I had this thought like, whoa, I wish what if I could live here? You know, it was like this world was opening up and I was like, look at all these possibilities. What if I could live here? But of course I had no reason to think that other than the fact that I thought it was really cool. So yeah, I just was like, it was like a glimpse into something that I wanted. And so then she was like, actually, my daughter Dee is going to be dancing at this event. Do you guys want to come? And the volunteer I was with, she was sort of like, I don't know. And I was like, no, let's go. So we end up going to this cultural event, and that's the video. And her daughter's dancing in it, and there's like a bunch of people dancing, but it was like all these different types of dances. And so her daughter demonstrated one. And yeah, it was just like, I remember just being like, oh, this is really cool. Like, I really like all this culture and vibrance and liveliness and conversation. Like, it was everything that I was not getting in my site. It was like all right here. Everything felt alive. And I even remember they had this adorable little dog. And I remember picking him up and like I wanted to cry because in my site, in my community, dogs were just rats kind of on the street. My host mom hated dogs. Every time she passed one, she would like she'd try to kick it away. And I knew I really wanted a dog during my Peace Corps service, but I knew I was not going to get one living with her. So anyway, I was emotional. I'm holding this dog. I'm like, God, I feel like I'm in a place that I can actually be myself and be around things that I love. I don't even want to go back to my site. And then as the evening came, Dee and her dad said, you know, we'll give you a ride back to your site. And so they gave us both a ride, which was so nice of them. And so first was the other volunteer site. So she gets dropped off. And then they continue down the road to my site and they pull in front of the house that I'm living in. And I just remember saying goodbye and they looked at me like very concerned and I was just like, all right. And I remember that seeing the house from their car and it was completely dark and, you know, everything shut. And so, yeah, I walked back into the house and I'm just thinking, wow, that was cool. I can't wait to go back. I don't want to be here. But I sort of, you know, like what was I going to do in that moment other than just be where I was? So I think it was either that night or the next night, I got a text from Dee and from her mom and just sort of seeing how I was, you know? And I remember, and mind you, I'm calling her Dee because I don't want to use her real name, but I remember, like sort of saying, yeah, everything's fine. And it was obvious that they were kind of concerned about me because they knew, because I had been very open with them about my situation during the visit. Like, yeah, I don't feel like I'm doing much at the school, you know, things like that. And they were kind of like clear with me that they felt like the community I was in was a difficult one. And so it made me feel, it was so validating for me because I felt like I was going crazy in a way, like something was like so wrong with me, you know, and like that was tearing me apart. And I guarantee it was a huge reason my health was at the state it was at, and that I felt like I literally couldn't even leave my room because I just felt like everything about me was wrong somehow. And then Dee, she said something along the lines of this. She said this, and I'm actually going to get the text, and looking at it, it makes me want to fucking cry. She said, "Disculpa el atrevimiento, pero tú quieres venir a vivir con nosotros?" And then she said, "Para hacer tu trabajo aquí?" So that basically meant, like, excuse the boldness, but do you want to come live with us to do your job here? And I remember feeling so much relief. Like, it was like all my prayers had been answered. It was like the best thing that could have possibly happened was to be asked that and to feel that there was that sort of possibility. It gave me so much hope. So we kind of continued the conversation. I said I had told my project manager that I didn't feel I could stay in my community, and then she said her mom had spoken with my project manager and she said that I could live with them. And she said the truth is that I didn't very much like the place where we brought you to. It's very alone. It was something like that. And it was just like, it was like a rainbow. Like, I don't know how to describe it other than it was like a double rainbow, and suddenly like the storm has passed. And so I remember speaking to my project manager, and I said, I had written her like a long message, I think, and then I had it in my head where if for some reason it couldn't work out, like I was done. And so this is this video. Today is the day. I knew that there would be a point where, well, I didn't know for sure, but I did say that if there was a point where I knew it was time, I would know it was time. And yesterday I sent a message to my program manager, basically saying that after seeing some other site situations, I see that there are places that I could survive in, but this is not one of those places. So, that's more or less what the message said. It sounds kind of dramatic. I guess that the message was a little dramatic. I try to make it eloquent though. Anyway, but today, so that was yesterday was Sunday, and so I knew she wouldn't reply till today. I'm waiting to hear back. She said she was in a meeting, so vamos a ver. I hope that, honestly, like, on paper that is what I hope, but then like part of me also is like, well, if they don't do that, I'm just gonna leave. Either way, the universe will take care of me, and what is supposed to happen will happen. Sorry, I look like literally such a mess. I was at school this morning, and then I just did all my laundry, which is such a task here. And anyway, so yeah, this is like the point where I'm realizing like, okay, no, this is not working for me being here at this moment. So I have to listen to my intuition here. So we'll see what she says, and I will report back soon. Luckily, after I recorded that video, I remember when I recorded that video, I had done all my laundry that day. Everything was hung out because I was like, I'm gonna get everything cleaned and packed just in case, because if I'm not allowed to move to Sabana de la Mad, I'm gonna just leave Peace Corps. That's where I was at, because I was like, this is such a great opportunity, and it made me realize how much I couldn't be where I was. And so I got approval within a few days, I think, and I remember I was told, don't tell the school, don't tell your host mom, don't tell anyone yet. We're gonna call them and tell them. So I very secretly packed my stuff. Luckily, I didn't have a ton of stuff. It was everything in, I had one big suitcase and one small suitcase. So I basically got everything organized and packed as best as I could. And I went to school the next day as normal. And I remember the principal calling me into her office and saying, oh, I got a text from your project manager, and she wants to talk to me. And I said, okay, cool. I was sitting there, and I think that she got the call sometime around then. And I remember seeing her on the phone, and they're explaining to her that I'm gonna be leaving, yada yada. And I remember seeing her smile. I remember her lip raised, and I could see her teeth, and you could tell she was so happy that I was leaving. But she smiled, and then she tried to hide it. And I remember just thinking, well, all my suspicions were correct. Like, nobody wanted me here, and I didn't want to be here. And then I remember as soon as that call was done, they had to set up where they would give me a call and make it seem like I was getting that news. So I took the call, and I stepped outside the office, and they were just basically explaining to me that they were about to come get me and drive me over to my site. I ended up leaving the school. I said, oh, I have to go back, tell my host mom. I kind of made it seem like I was just finding this news out, and my host mom was there, and I handed her my phone. I said, hey, Peace Corps needs to talk to you. Something is about to change. And I just kind of made it seem like this was being dropped upon me. And so I give her the phone, I believe, and she takes it, talks to them, explains, and then I kind of explained to her, or I might have explained to her first and then handed it to her. It wasn't super eventful in that moment because her response to it was just sort of like, okay. And of course I said bye to everyone. At the school, I was kind of like, I'm leaving, bye. Then I remember the person who worked with my project manager, let's call him the other project manager, he came and he helped me load my stuff into his car, and he drove me to Serendipity. And it was one of the best days of my life. It was better than getting into the Peace Corps, I tell you. And it was so cool because I remember the plan was that I went there to Serendipity knowing I was going to live with this family. I did not know exactly where I would be living with the family. And then I was given the news that I would get to live in the casita. And that to me was everything, because I had already had that thought that that's where I want to live. And but the mom was actually out of town for that week or whatever. And it was like shortly before Christmas too. So Dee, her very cool daughter, who turned out to be a few years older than me, so she was like in her 30s. Young 30s though. She was like, you're gonna stay with me for the next 2 weeks until we can get the casita ready for you. And my mom's back maybe after Christmas, I think it was the plan that I was gonna move in. So to this day, the 2 weeks I lived in her house were the best 2 weeks in my service. School was not in session. And while school is a super important part of Peace Corps, the most important part is the community and the relationships you build. And suddenly I was building the things that I'd been wanting to build all along. I stayed with her for 2 weeks. It wasn't even a room that was mine. I just remember I had my bag in there. There was a girl that she had living with her that was in high school, and that girl was out of town. So I was living in this like high school girl's room, and I was sharing a bathroom with Dee, and I didn't have my casita, but I was so happy. I was so happy because every day at lunch, her and I sat together. Every morning, I could make my own coffee in her kitchen when she went to work. And then I knew that every day, the rest of the day, I would get to spend hanging out with her, hanging out with her dad, hanging out with the community. When her mom came back into town, I would hang out with her. We did things together. She showed me around. I was brought into the community with open arms, and that is everything that I had been lacking in my first community. I was so happy. And then something that was so cool is when I came and she had that little dog that I love so much, I expressed to her how much I wanted a dog. And she told me that her aunt had a pregnant dog. And I was like, what? She was like, do you want one of the puppies? And I was like, I would love one of the puppies. I went to meet her aunt. Her aunt turned out to be one of the greatest people I have ever met to this day. I loved her aunt. And I remember her aunt was like, yeah, so this dog I have, Mickey, is pregnant, and you are welcome to have one of the puppies. And she was like, do you know if you want a girl or a boy? And I told her, I want a girl. She's like, I will save you a girl. And I got to meet the mom, and I thought she was such a sweet dog. And there was so much hope. It was like, I joined the Peace Corps with all the hope in the world, all of it. It was like I wasn't in a community that was conducive for me. And then suddenly, by the grace of God, for God's sake, by divine intervention, I fall into the best possible situation I could have ever asked for. And I am so grateful to this day that it happened. And then there's I come at the same time that there's this puppy that's going to be born. And it was less than 2 weeks. I was still living with Dee when it happened, when the puppies were born. And there was only one female. And she was mine. And I was so excited. So I'm going to end this video there. I thought that it was only going to be part 1 and 2, but it's going to be part 1, 2, and 3 because I had to explain the situation in full. And obviously, it still brings me joy just to talk about it. So that's where I'm going to leave off. And thank you for watching, everyone. Bye.